1, live.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We are here live in Chagrin Falls. We're all excited. We're talking about the Vincina Protocol. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what that is. We just posted a live link a couple minutes ago about Shelling, the Vincina Protocol and corruption, so you might want to check that out. It's on Facebook. But let me just back up a little bit and talk about what the Vincina Protocol is, just in case you're new. So in 2014, a dear friend of mine, Vincina Helfenstein, died of Lou Gehrig's disease. You're kind of wondering why we're sitting in front of a little mini baseball field. So I'll explain that too. But sadly, Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS, is a deadly disease. And when Squeak died, that's her little nickname, Squeak. When she died, she made her husband Mike promise that he was going to forward the word about getting treatment and getting diagnosis and getting all of that in order, because she went 3.5 years without being diagnosed. She also wants to address the issues of Conneaut, Ohio, and how there is illegal dumping going on of toxic waste, methamphetamine waste, and chemical waste going on in that town. And so sadly, on her deathbed, she made Mike promise to continue getting the word out. And that's what we're doing here. So even though it's a sad ending to a very sad story, we're here to bring some light on a sad subject. And one of those ways that we do that is through this amazing baseball game that we're sitting here with. My friend Ryan, Mr. Ryan Bihar, designed this game, and we've dedicated that to the Vincina Protocol. And I don't know if we can see that with the camera. Can you focus in on that Vincina Protocol?
You can see that.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, so it's a baseball, bearing baseball game. There we go. There's the Vincina Protocol. So what we're doing is creating our own ice bucket challenge in a nutshell. You guys all know what the Ice Bucket Challenge did, so we're creating that with the Vincina Protocol and this game. So if that's interesting to you and you want to get this game and you want to participate, we want to talk to you. In the meantime, tonight's topic is corruption. And we're not going to point any fingers, but what we do know is that there is a very large 80-acre dump site in Conneaut, Ohio, that has not been cleaned up and has been dubbed as a what's that called? Superfund site. A Superfund site. What that means is the government comes in and says, look, this is a mess. It needs to be cleaned up and it needs to be quarantined, etc. and so on. And if you drive by this 80-acre site, what's the name of the road? Gore Road and Amboy Road. If you drive by there are parts of that dump site that actually look like a park. It's pretty scary. So that signage needs to go up, and that toxic dump site needs to be cleaned up. But so that's kind of a summary of what we're talking about is the Vincina Protocol, what we can do to forward getting the word out, how we can have fun doing that. And that's why I've got my teammate Bobby here, my teammate Ryan here. We've got Mike in the background. And again, the conversation is, corruption and cover up. And, it's funny because I was watching the president of the United States do his presidential address, right? And it's so true. He says, it breaks my heart to see how these people come to him that are on these, they're major, cabinet members and so on, and they have these agendas that they really want to forward for the good of man, for the good of the U.S. and why they got into government, and how their heart is broken because they're stuck between a rock and a hard place of all of this, corruption and manipulation. So it's interesting. You see it everywhere. In fact, there's a TV show about corruption, and it's called. What is it called? I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, so I'm going to turn this back over to Mike, and we are going to get into some pretty interesting topics. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Wendy. What we're going to do tonight is we're just going to go over some basic stuff just to kind of build a base for the public to start understanding. And I'm going to start asking some questions to Bobby first, and that's relative to corruption. It seems the public today is a little numb when it comes to the word corruption.
American Crime.
Thank you.
That is the primetime show. It's called American Crime. Sorry.
All
American
right.
Crime, and it's talking about corruption.
She's not even blonde.
I know, I'm not even blonde. Sorry. Go
And
ahead.
you know what's really fun is that
Sorry.
we spend a lot of time doing research. So each week we come on live to kind of bring the public into that conversation. So as we go forward tonight, we've seen a little bit of foreplay from Chella in the kitchen, and she's threw out a bunch of words. We'll clarify all of that next week. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the subject matter that is kind of important to America, and that is communities that go corrupt and can never pull back from that. So Bobby's going to talk a little bit about why we got focused on a Netflix TV series called Making a Murderer. Is that correct, Bobby?
Yep, that's it.
In that Making of a Murderer, we're going to just talk about episode 1. So, Bobby, when you reviewed episode 1, give me an idea of how it started to play in your mind and how you compared that with Ashtabula County.
It was very similar. You think the guy was innocent, and all this stuff started breaking out on the news where now he's going to be up for murder, and it gives you a different insight.
Did he go to jail for like a really long time?
Yeah, he went to jail for a long time, and they said he was, he was falsely, accused, and now that finds out in 2000, I forget what year that was, but he's locked up now for murder.
But we're going to take this step by step. So let's go with the second step. Now, when you're watching the first episode, the town is not of real importance to us, but how would you compare that community from the community of Conneaut? What have you seen that kind of bothers you reviewing the first episode?
Well, it's just like a country town, a lot of similarities.
Small rural town America.
Exactly.
Any town America.
And that it just goes to show you this kind of stuff can happen anywhere.
Right.
Not in just big cities, but small towns. It goes on. People have to be aware of what goes on in these small towns.
Let me ask you, watching that episode, what would you say was the primary objective of that community from just reviewing the first episode?
His claim of innocence and how he perceived. I think he thinks he got over on everyone. And I think just like in Conneaut, Ohio, these people are doing this dumping. They think they're getting over on everybody, and it's not going to happen. We're here to make sure that does not happen. People need to be aware what's going on out there, and that's why we're here.
On the episode of the Netflix program, did you see justice being served in the first episode?
It's hard to say. Because everyone was saying he was innocent. I haven't watched enough episodes to see, but it makes it sound like he was wrongly accused.
But didn't he spend like 18 years in jail? And then they decided to let him out?
Yeah, they had some DNA evidence that
18 years later.
Yeah, after 18 years, they had DNA evidence that said, he wasn't the guy.
Right.
And then, 18
and
years.
What's the name of that again?
It is
Making of a Murderer.
Making of a Murderer by Netflix.
Netflix.
It's a Netflix original. Actually,
and it's a true story.
It's a documentary.
It's a documentary.
Oh,
it's a documentary broken into 10 episodes.
Yep,
10 episodes.
You watched any of it?
I have. I watched the first 3 episodes.
You know what? It's like that American Crime
Yes.
primetime
Yes.
story. It's
Yes.
it's the
Yeah,
city.
totally.
It's a tiny little town just like this, and the people are so terrified to go up against anybody with authority that they all make up stuff. It's just crazy. They make up stuff in this poor little boy whose life is ruined. And I don't want to go into detail about that, but his life is ruined, and everyone goes to all these lengths to protect the corruption versus this precious little boy, and it's heartbreaking.
Just it
It's
is.
crazy.
Ryan, did you say that you saw the first episode?
About halfway through.
Okay.
It.
Give me your kind of overview of just what you saw as just a bystander watching a movie without having the Kaniat premise in your head.
Hey, let me ask you, can you see Ryan really well? I want to make sure he's in the
I'll
shot.
slide over here a little.
Gotta make sure he's a movie star, Dave.
Yeah, we got to get his mug in there.
No, so I think my impression.
Everything look good, Dave?
Yeah, everything's good.
Okay, cool.
I think my impressions are that the one thing, not only with government officials and police, but also big business. Like, it's just like, it's all about, in that case, it's all about the almighty dollar, and they're going to do whatever and to make that money. And if they got to cut corners and do all these, possibly shady things,
Yeah.
you see it time and time again. And this, had to do with the human being, where there's, again, I said I'm early into it, but when it happened, they had early types of DNA, and it sounded like there was already some questions of the DNA found on the victim. But that ball started rolling, and people wanted to protect themselves. And if someone has a reputation already, unfortunately, a lot of times reputations, it's very hard for people to dig
That guy,
themselves out of
he
it.
looked like a dirty ass hillbilly. I'm sorry.
And again,
Yeah,
I think
It did look like that,
That's
but
right.
that's
That's
sad.
right.
Kind of doing
Right,
the jail
exactly.
just
That's my point. So then everybody believes he's
That's
always going to
correct.
be that.
that's correct.
But yet he was innocent.
But maybe, yeah.
Looks are
but,
deceiving.
right. That,
Yeah.
And that's.
Look at me. I look like a thug, but I'm a great guy.
That's true. That is true. About
And here's where, using the comparison, that particular documentary has brought a lot of light to the subject. That particular documentary is getting the public to move in a direction to say, we want more information.
exactly.
We want to wake up. And the way to wake up is to get the politicians' attention to the matter.
Right.
What we are drawing a comparison to with Conneaut, Ohio, is we have some issues here that have been talked about in a public hearing since October 6th of 2014.
Wow.
So there is no discussion whatsoever to the parties who actually brought this into a public hearing.
Right. They can go look it up on the Ashtabula County Registry, right?
That
or
is-
a criminal docket.
That is correct.
Mike,
Yeah.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are these same politicians that are, not doing anything about it? I mean, do they live in Conneaut?
Yes. Conneaut is a very small town. Everyone knows one another.
But how can you know what's going on and continue to live there?
And
They
again,
have BMAA, bacteria there. I mean, they're letting their own kids drink that water, and
I think the
That
point
shit.
is, Bobby, that
People feel helpless.
we have not been able to motivate the politicians to even have a conversation about this. The public is not aware, and that's where we are drawing the comparison. That community out in Wisconsin, a private independent film company came in to tell the story. This is how we are going to approach this. We are going to approach this through documentaries.
Right.
We've got one already in the can, being in post-production.
Our documentary, if I may interject this, is huge. There
Oh,
was
yeah.
a guy who used to work for National Geographic, and he's doing research on toxic dumping and algae blooms, just like our Lake Erie. And by the way, we got an email from a friend of mine today who said that NASA is doing research on Lake Erie and blue-green algae dumps or blue-green algae blooms, which has to do with toxic dumping and pollution in our water. But let me get back to my point. My point is that this guy was working for National Geographic, and he decided to go out on his own, do this documentary, and now we are literally this close to the film festival with our information and all the information that this guy has compiled in this documentary. Wasn't he in Belgium or something, France, when he called you and said there was an algae bloom just like ours in Lake Erie from toxic dumping?
That's correct.
So, I mean, this is going on all around the world. So we're really excited. And we'll let you guys know when our documentary is released. They're in the editing stages and we're this close. So.
But Mike, these people that are creating this, blue-green algae, do they know what kind of, the people that are doing it, do they actually know what kind of bacteria that they're causing by doing it? Are they uneducated about it?
Yeah, they really, our issue when we went to the public hearing, we just said, hey, look, the blue-green algae bloom is a natural effect. What we said to our politicians is there's data that supports the hypothesis that the blue-green algae is being triggered by chemical runoff, by pesticides, a whole variety of elements. When that occurs and it connects with blue-green algae, and really the word blue-green algae is something that was coined, very coined and generic by the media.
Right.
And the media was doing what it has to do to get the information to the public, because the word is cyanobacteria, and the public would not really understand what that means.
Right. So guys, go out there and Google Scholar, not Google Scholar, cyanobacteria, or BMAA. You want to know more? Do your homework. Go to Google Scholar. Not Google, but Google Scholar.
And Wendy, you've done a lot of research.
I have. Let me tell you something. You go to pubmed.gov, pubmed.gov, and type in BMAA. It will blow your mind how many reports come up. It was frightening. This is not funny business. This is real serious research.
Oh yeah.
I was blown away the first time I looked at BMAA up.
I was blown away when you showed me. I couldn't believe it. That's why I'm here.
It's crazy. It's scary.
And again, let me bring up the next point so that it's very clear. We are now on the phase of getting the information out on a much larger scale than we did when we went to the public hearing. We brought in an individual who has the ability to present this information to a huge, huge network. And Wendy is part. Can we give us, Wendy, your take on receiving the data that we've talked about this week?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the public is going to be able to read and understand that based on what we've talked about this week?
Well, we have a partner in Cincinnati, Chella Marie, and she has been with the Vincina Protocol actually a little bit longer than myself, and she is a network in the South, and we're working in our network up here in Ohio. And we have several tools in which we are getting this word out. We have our book, which will be published here in the near future, which is literally like a kind of like a journal, I guess, how you would call it. And it's
everything's documented in it.
Yeah,
all the facts.
Exactly,
It's
Mike's
like a docudrama.
kind of.
It really is.
Pretty cool stories.
Yes.
It is a That's a perfect word for it.
Get
Mike.
going, right.
Seriously, yeah.
That's what I thought when you told
Put
me
those
about
glasses
it,
to work somehow.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I mean, it's got literal emails of what Mike heard from the EPA when he responded and said, "Oh my gosh, we've got toxic dumping in Conneaut. What are we going to do about this? Because this is a big deal. And the EPA's response. We've got, you know, literally hours of interviews from Mike and his wife, the dear Squeak Helfenstein, about, you know, what went on. We've got interviews from, you know, anything from city officials to truck drivers. And so there's a lot in this book, and it's going to be unbelievable when it's released. So we've got, in fact, I'm working with, I used to work for CBS 19, and I'm working with some people who are interested in this story. I mean, what's not to be interested about? I mean, it's huge. We've got corruption. You guys haven't even heard we're talking about corruption. Wait till you hear about, can I say?
Yes, you can.
Wait till you hear about Wells Fargo and how they broke into his house the day his wife died.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who
Pay
does
your
that?
mortgages, people. Bank mafia exists.
Seriously, you guys think I'm blowing smoke? All you have to do is go to the Ashtabula County website and look up Helfenstein under the civil court docket, and there is a lawsuit going on between Wells Fargo and Mr. Mike Helfenstein because they broke into his house the day his wife died. What a coincidence, wouldn't you say? Whatever. I mean, there's so much corruption, it's ridiculous.
Well, what we're going to talk about tonight, and that's really what
I
Chella,
just get ticked off about that.
and you can
Good thing
see,
you interrupted me.
thank you. That's what we're trying to do is control this. We saw Chella get crazy
Easy girl.
about
I
20
know,
minutes
it's
ago.
ridiculous.
Obviously, she had just returned. She wasn't saying it out loud, but she had a document in her hand, and she presented it to the public. So they're going to be able to actually see that document that she had in her
Yes.
hand. She got it from one of her friends. And the issue that we're using here is that we asked some very simple questions. And when we ask those questions to the politicians over and over again, city council after city council, all the way back to 1990.
And you weren't like pointing fingers like I'm gonna nail you. You were saying let's work as a team to get this done.
That is correct.
I mean, your approach was not confrontational in any sense. It was let's get this together as a group, as a team, and get this done, guys.
Chella is a very interesting character. Due to the fact she's not here now, she said her speech very quickly while she was cooking, but
Hibachi.
I would like to get Ryan's overview. You've seen Chella just once or twice. Give me your take on why we need Chella to actually spearhead this corruption phase in our episodes. You're brand new to this, so give us what you believe the public will perceive.
I mean, I see her having passion, which is something I'm sure you're looking for somebody to spread that word. She's got the gift of gab of what I know. And
Sorry, Chella, but you got a big
You gotta
mouth.
get the gap, girl.
so in the right situations, that can be very advantageous and useful to get the word out. Maybe using her own talents better and for a great cause like this, then some even myself possibly could be as effective at. And the fact that I think it's a great cause, and for my own life and my family and friends and everybody in this country and not only the world. I mean, it's the way to start getting the word out, and she definitely seems like she can do that. So,
Thank you. Bobby, you were trained on the Chella scenario this week. That is the file that documents what Chella did when she drove up with her security team to Conneaut, Ohio, back in July of 2015. Give me just kind of a quick description of what that was like for you as you were reading the information for the first time.
Well, I'll give a short statement. It was basically, the proof was in the pudding. I mean, she confirmed all your findings and saw what was going on up there. So, she basically verified, how corrupt it was. So, I mean,
Thank you. One thing that needs to be brought up now, and that is questions have been asked. And you all have started studying the data book before the public receives it. And that data book is what Wendy has been talking about, the journal, the book. It's strictly a journal that is extremely specific in time and date. Um, the the issue that I would like to bring up, and that was how this affects you all representing the project, and that is when we went before City Council back officially in 2001. We went to Council with a very simple question when Squeak's Restaurants were kicking ass, we were making a ton of money. And we said to City Council, hey, we will write the check for you guys to pursue some answers from a question that we had a hard time understanding. That question was 12-year-old little girls being invited to adult house parties in Conneaut, where business people are located sponsoring these parties. We asked City Council to investigate. We asked City Council to ask questions. We gave a complete report in 2001.
And let me clarify, that report, if I may, can I speak
Yes.
to that a little bit?
Yes, please do.
That report was a gathering of information over several years, speaking to these adult partygoers who provided information one-to-one, relinquishing this information freely to Mike, and agreed on camera to be recorded telling Mike what happened at these adult parties. This is not speculation. This isn't guesswork. This is literally recordings of people telling Mike. And Mike was a restaurant owner. He used that platform to his advantage to say, listen, I just want to know what's going on in my community so I can better this community. And Squeak and him had a mission. So when we talk about this information, it isn't guessing, guys. It is fact.
all facts.
And
Every
we
bit of it.
have thousands of hours of interviews. So I apologize, I interject. So when he took this information to council, it wasn't speculation. It was fact. So he went to Conneaut Council with this information, factual information. Go ahead.
Now, the
I
reason why we
apologize.
bring this up, and the reason why Wendy and Chella and Bobby and Ryan, these individuals are in charge of the project as we go forward, who are basically very, very objective to reading the information because they have no investment in Conneaut, Ohio at all. So as they read the data, they do not have to speculate. They're just seeing the interviews themselves. With that said, when we went before the council, they gave us a city resolution. They documented the files that we brought before City Council, and they called it Resolution 9201. That was my first day of getting the paper trail started.
And Mike, can I interrupt you? What does a resolution mean for people who are listening? Like when you say it's resolution
01.
9201 resolution in Conneaut, Ohio, that was registered on what date? What does that mean?
That was registered September of 2001, where the public hearing went forward and a council person set up a motion asking for the president of council to make a move on building a document that will be in public record forever of the discussion of the files so that that could be handed over to law enforcement.
And you agreed, your wife, Vincina Helfenstein, and yourself agreed to fund. Let's get this straight. I will give you money, city council, to investigate this.
And we were told by city council, you do it as a private citizen, do what you have to do. We don't want to be part of it.
Wow.
Okay, so I understood what they were saying because they had friends that were in the drug business. With that said, we wrote a report.
That's a movie in and of itself, hello.
Yeah.
That right there is a movie. But I apologize. Go ahead.
Now, with that said,
on.
we went forward because the little girl had just been shot, 12 years of age. Her name was Angela Boggs. She went to one of these parties.
A drug adult party. A 12-year-old went
She
to an adult
unfortunately
drug
was shot on walking into the property by accident. But the issue is she should not have been there. She did walk in. A gun was discharged and she died immediately. That's why we started the project. We started this project to find out who the business people are that were basically setting up the network.
When was the fatal shooting?
February of 2001. Okay,
Was
so
this before or after you went to the council?
actually this was before. That was the trigger for
the
me.
catalyst.
Yeah, 2001.
An
It,
innocent.
it took about 3 or 4 months for the investigation to go forward. A couple of people paid the consequence to that. But the issue that I brought forward was, wait a minute, let's focus on the network. Who
Right.
was actually responsible for setting up these invitations?
Approximately how many adults and how many children were at each one of these parties? And if I remember correctly, you said these went on close to every night of the week?
That is correct. Based on the interviews that we did, shows that there were invitations being sent out to these children in school, during school, to come to the parties after school. And these kids would walk from the school, walk down the street and into the house because they were told of the address.
How many kids and how many adults approximately?
Well, and again, I'm not going to get into the numbers because
Okay.
what we did was we interviewed as many adults as we could.
Yeah.
And this investigation is still ongoing.
Okay.
The purpose of this was we saw a bridge. We were actually able to talk to one of the drug dealers who said to me, and this was back in 2012. 2012 was my first conversation. Late 2012, I was asking what's going on in town because my wife is sick and I think it's an environmental trigger. And this dealer, the same guy who I interviewed to set the network of drug dealers who I could interview, said, Mike, we've been seeing large waste amounts coming into this property. It's been going on.
The 80-acre dump site.
It's been going on since 1969. So based on that, Wendy's done some research to actually look in public record as to this 1969 dump site. It was closed in 1974, but why are we talking about it now in 2016? Wendy, can you clarify that position?
I can.
Go ahead.
Oh, let me. This is just infuriating. I seriously can't even not wrap around my head around this. So Mike has a 60-page document that shows the EPA was out there and said, hey, this is a mess. It needs to be cleaned up. And I'm talking about the Gore, why can I never remember the other name?
Gore Amboy.
Amboy / Gore Road dump site.
But it has a Gore Road address. So
okay.
we're not focused on Amboy as
Okay,
much
so Gore
as
Road.
the address.
So and again, when I said in the beginning, when it is deemed a Superfund site, and you guys can Google that, Superfund toxic dump sites, that means that the government has already been out there and said, holy night, this is a mess. We need to clean this up. Okay. And so what's supposed to take place is that a perimeter is supposed to be set around this, and it is supposed to be posted for public notice. Do not enter this site. And then there's supposed to be government funding that comes in and helps this town clean up this toxic mess, get it out of there, dispose of it properly, and then restore the land, or I don't know too much more about that. But interestingly, if you drive by there, there is no fencing, there is no posting. And Mike has emails that actually are in response to this saying, wait a minute, didn't you already say this was supposed to take place? And they're like, well, you know, we're kind of backed up and we've got to look into this again. Look into it again, really? Seriously? Like, people are dying because of this toxic waste. And you know, you guys can look this up. I mean, none of this is speculation. You can look it up. What makes those blue-green algae blooms go rogue is this runoff of all this methamphetamine waste from these drug parties that Mike's talking about. These drug dealers are burying their 55-gallon drums of toxic meth waste into this Gore Road dump site, and it is causing our blue-green algae blooms to go rogue and turn into this cyanobacteria, which turns into the BMAA, which turns into the neurotoxin. So why isn't the EPA, why isn't the city, why isn't anybody concerned about this? I mean, to me, it's
mind-boggling.
Oh my God. It's huge. It's ridiculous.
Totally.
It's insane.
Yep.
80 acres, guys. 80 acres in the center of town. And why don't you just go ask any doctor in that area? I've talked to doctors. How many cancer patients are out there? Anybody know anybody that lives in that area with cancer? How about MS? How about Parkinson's? How about Lou Gehrig's disease? There is such a huge disease cluster out there. And everybody keeps turning their back. Yeah. Everybody keeps ignoring this. It is ridiculous.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to 2007, and Ryan has done a little bit of research back in the 2007 journal, where I went back to City Council. I went and did another public hearing. I brought up the fact of Resolution 9201 not really getting any kind of legs, any kind of momentum from city. And I said, can we do a better job? Can we build a better resolution that brings everyone on the same question that we can go after answers for? In doing so, I received another resolution, and they said, okay, create and form a coalition, a commission, whatever you want to do, just as long as it's a private initiative, as long as we don't have to spend any time or money on it. And that resolution was called 4707, more defined, with a basic understanding that we have a problem in 2007. And tell me, Ryan, what was Squeak's role in this when she was working the restaurants?
And let me clarify.
Go ahead.
So what Ryan is about to talk about is in this book that we keep referring to, and it's part of that journal book that Mike has kept all these years, and that's what Ryan's going to talk a little bit about.
Well, I mean, being basically owner-manager of any restaurant, most of us at one point or another were either delivering pizzas, or we were delivering food, or we were being a busboy,
schlepping
or
dishes,
every one of those.
Yeah.
And basically, lots of talk goes on in restaurants. People I worked alongside had stories where I grew up, and everybody had a little bit different background, but everybody got their first job, and we were waiters and busboys and seating people and delivering. So to be a manager, if you've got ears at all and kind of have a good rapport with your employees, they'll definitely start to talk. They'll definitely start to tell stories. We all tell about our lives. We're all interested in each other, some sort, when you start working around people. And genuinely start to care or dislike the people you're working around. Either way, you're probably still going to get stories, right? You're going to get good ones.
Gathering information.
So her being in the restaurant business day to day in a small town is one way that I have no problem understanding that after a while and in years upon years, people come in and out of those doors and go on with their lives and come back. And some of them, I'm sure, were more comfortable later on coming back and telling more things. And while they were working there, the young ones just talking and sharing and all that. When the doors close at the end of the night and we're all cleaning up,
Yep.
people are telling stories. That's a great information facilitator. And so Squeak listened well and listened to a lot of things. And unfortunately, kids around that age were the ones getting the leaflets, were the ones who, I mean, we were all that age too. You don't go home and run home and tell your mom and dad like, oh, I'm in 9th grade and I just heard about this party that was this weekend where I was at home playing Legos, but half the kids in my grade were all drinking and doing all these things that I'm not supposed to do for another 6 or 7 years of my life.
Yeah.
And inevitably, some of those things were great stories. I'm sure she had some great bonds with people and were able to help. But then you also hear the sad ones and the ones that are very worrisome and the ones that get you thinking, what can we do to, help out some of the youth and not just your workers, but our workers' friends and all that.
Bobby, this brings me to ask the question because this kind of hits home with you. An illness, that attacks a family is devastating. I think you read in some of Squeak's stuff what it was like for her when she was diagnosed with ALS, and you can kind of compare that with kind of a crisis that happened to you. How could you compare your story with Squeak's story when she received this diagnosis?
Just how my mom just basically disintegrated. She was a 160-pound woman and went from 160 pounds to 68 pounds when she passed. It was just horrific. I mean, I didn't know your wife personally, but I could imagine, what you went through and, what I went through. I had to feed my mom through a straw the last month she lived. It was bad, but who knows, drinking water or whatever, what made her sick. We don't know. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, the doctors still can't. They couldn't diagnose what caused it.
No. That's why I'm here. We want to find out.
And that's
one of your guys' mom might get sick. That's why you guys need to watch us and do something about this because it's happening out there.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to Wendy and kind of do this as a summation. We've said a lot tonight. I think the purpose for tonight's episode is because we know that there's a lot going on in our lives. We've talked and we've interviewed with a lot of very interesting people who came to us.
Yes.
And rather than, go out and make any kind of an accusation, our purpose for this is to get the people of Conneaut to wake up.
Right.
Just wake up.
Yeah.
And give me your take on some of the tools that we are going to be using next week to actually broadcast this information all over the world. Obviously, you are connected with Chella, and you two have been talking how you're going to do that. So
yep.
Chella was all excited tonight.
Yeah, we're excited.
So give me some feedback on that.
So obviously we're asking you guys to share these broadcasts with all of your friends. It actually uploads onto YouTube and it's there forever. So, you can go and get the recorded version of this and share it with your friends. We're also looking to build teams around this game. It is the guy, Lou Gehrig, who died of ALS, was a baseball extraordinaire. I mean, he was, very well known. So we're looking to build teams around our baseball games and challenge, Cincinnati and God knows where else. I mean, who knows? It could be all around the world. You can order the game and we'll play it all over, film you live, playing wherever you're at. If it's Hawaii or Hong Kong, who knows, right? That's our goal. And also, we are pretty excited because I think we're going to be going to Cincinnati to, stir up some excitement there. And I think we're going to go there Sunday. So we'll keep you guys posted through Facebook about that. And also, a lot of people want to know, well, if I get this, this BMAA and a neurotoxin or disease, what do we do about it? So we're going to be touching a lot about that. We're going to be saying, how do we, fix this degeneration? What do we do about that? And we've got a lot of answers about that.
Measures to take preventatives for it.
Yeah. So, hopefully that answers your question.
It does.
I just want to leave
Yes.
people with, look, go out there and do your research. I told you, go on PubMed, PUBMED.gov, and look up oxidative stress, because that's where all of these diseases that I mentioned start.
NRF2.
You can look up NRF2 activation. That is the body's own ability to produce proteins and enzymes that protect ourselves from all of this abuse and this BMAA and all sorts of other toxins we're involved about and exposed to them. So yeah, I mean, we're in future episodes, we're going to be talking more about that. We're going to be talking about building our teams, and we're looking to get some exposure. If you know anyone in TV, radio, print, if you know anyone that wants to be a part of the Vincina protocol, and just get the word out. If you feel this has moved you, or if you've lost a loved one because of environmental illness or a disease of any sort, there are so many reasons to become involved. We're looking to get the drinking water cleaned up. We're looking to get the protocol written for the diagnosis and treatment of ALS.
Tonight's conversation about the drug
Yeah,
use,
I mean, the drugs.
underage, leading to underage illicit sex. You hate to bring all those bad things up, but
You do hate to, and I mean, look how many times have we heard on the news?
I'd like to curb that for sure.
Yeah,
Make
I mean,
it a
our
little better
kids,
for everyone.
the kids are exposed to all these drug dealers approaching them. I mean, there's just so much to do. And like Mike said, how do we do that? We make the people in Conneaut aware. We make the people in Chagrin Falls aware. We make the people in Parma and all over the U.S. aware of what's going on. And guess what? We can't do it by ourselves, guys. We need you.
Exactly.
We need you. Mike, what do you need from us to close tonight?
Well, I think we've got most of the stuff started. We'll do a follow-up on the episode after we evaluate a lot of this new data that we just received today and what we've been working on yesterday. So I just want to thank everybody who is listening, and we hope that everyone shares this, because that's the way things work, is we're trying to change the thinking process of politicians, and we're trying to identify that there are some real serious issues on why this information has been taken. What we're fighting right now in court is to get the rest of our journals, which really is sensitive journals, of the interviews that were basically confidential and talked to the drug dealers. So, we did everything we could to protect that information, and now that information is public record. And it's public record. Now it's part as exhibits in a court of law. So there is going to be some news people that are going to be following this. And this is because of Wendy Narrett. We want to thank you. So I'd like to thank everybody tonight.
Excellent job, guys.
I'd like to thank Bobby, Ryan,
job, team.
and Wendy, and David. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Yes, Dave, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.